Yo, hey, everybody. Welcome to the Daily B with Matty B, episode 10 with Sumedh Chatterjee, talking about flow, overcoming judgment, and just general old chit chat, see how things come and pan out. So, Sumedh's from the Flow Zone over in Los Angeles, and he's joined us today. It's not midnight, it's getting on, but it's pretty late over there. Actually, no, I think it's just late Arby. It was going to be midnight if we did it normal time, so. Hey guys, thanks for jumping on. Bryce, KT, Koshi, Big B, hey Bradley. Thanks for joining us, guys. You guys all look beautiful and amazing. I can just see your names, I can feel it. Here we go. Approve. Come on in, big fella. Let me know that you got that invite. Oh, approve. Oh, no answer video gets. Alright, I think something's fucking up. What's going on here? Sumedh, do you have a invite? Can you see an invite come up, brother? Let me just get this working. Maybe. Might have to start again. It's fucking up. Thanks for your patience, guys. Jasmine, hello. Hello, good morning. I've got 10 minutes. All right, Katie, I'll make it back in special. Shit. Sumedh, here we go. All right. See how that goes. That should work now, brother. Let me know. Connecting. Here we go. The man, legend, Sumedh Chatterjee. How are we?
Hey there, man. How's it going?
Very good, brother. Very good. Very good. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for coming to join me on the Daily B.
You're welcome, man. Thanks for inviting me over. It's awesome to be
Pleasure.
here.
Always good buzzing around with you, bro.
Same here, man. Let's get into it.
So I'll just mention just briefly that you're over in LA. You're running the Flow Zone Academy over there, which is basically helping people from all walks of life, accountants, lawyers, sports people, whoever, wherever, anything in between, to essentially find their state and find their flow so they can basically get the most out of themselves, out of their careers, out of their jobs, out of whatever they're doing, their relationships. And yeah, man, I just love listening to you chat about that and obviously learning from you as well. So well, to the people that don't know you, obviously there's a few on here that do already, Bradley, a few others. Can you share, a little bit about your background, mate, where you're from, what you do, who you are, a little bit about your sparkle?
Absolutely, man. So my name is Sumedh Chatterjee. I originally hail from Calcutta in India, and I've traveled most of my life. So I've grown up in Switzerland and Thailand for high school, and then I went over to Bennington, Vermont for my college years, and then I did a master's in London. So I'm world traveled. I'm a very global citizen, and essentially I really got interested in this aspect of positive psychology because I saw that psychology was just, it was focusing so much on people's mental illness and the fact that people are broken. And I really wanted to shine the light on the positive side to see essentially people's strengths. What are people's strengths doing? How do people stay motivated and driven? What inspires people? What gets people into that state where they're constantly focused? And then I came across flow, and this thing just fascinated me because I've known to weave in and out of this state most of my life. I've been hyper creative ever since I was a little boy, and just recording music, getting into rap battles, performing on stage, just drawing, all sorts of things, and just recognizing that in myself and allowing myself to tap into one of my top strengths has allowed me to teach others how they can tap into their own inner genius and their own creativity, and how people can essentially tap into the state of peak performance, of high performance. So that's really
what
what
was it that
excites me.
introduced you to it to begin with?
Sorry, what was that?
what was it that introduced you to this topic, I guess, the flow states?
Well, I guess I kind of had an idea about flow. The first time I heard the term was through hip hop. So I understood flow as in flowing in terms of lyrics. So I
Yeah.
never really understood that it was the state that you go into. But later on, when I was studying in my master's program, in my positive psychology master's program, I came across this state of flow, and I looked into it and I was really fascinated by it. It was said to be a pathway towards happiness. That was also really something that I
Very
was
appealing.
curious about.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Sounds like
sounds
everyone's on
like,
that path, isn't it?
yeah, it's like the Tao or something. And so I came across it and I was very fascinated by it. And I was just really obsessed and passionate about tapping into the state and helping others to tap into the state as well.
So we're talking like everyone knows what it is. Can you explain flow state to people?
So in terms of my own personal definition of flow, I would say it's a state where you're completely absorbed and immersed into the present moment, and you love what you're doing, the task at hand, and nothing else matters. And time either slows down or speeds up for you, it distorts, and you're completely so involved in the present moment that you don't feel hunger, you don't feel pain, you're so there that it's just such a pleasurable activity that it's a reward by itself. So you don't really need to gain anything out of it. It's just being in that state by itself is the reward. And
Very appealing.
flow is just this amazing feeling and state that people can tap into. And the Flow Genome Project and other things like that are really researching it and figuring out a way to sustain it. And that's what I'm really also passionate about.
Yeah, it was the Genome Project, the book, The Rise of Superman, that introduced me to it for
Yeah.
the first time. And that's where they just basically go and studied all these extreme sports stars that need to get in the zone straight away and how they do that, because obviously they're either going to die or break bones if they don't get their tricks right and do their stunts right. And then to transfer those skills from an extreme sports star getting in the zone straight away to teaching lawyers and accountants how to get in the zone and be able to perform at their peak when they're seemingly sitting there doing mundane tasks, and everyone in between. It just goes to show that it is it's transferable to across all walks of life, and no matter what you're doing, which is something that appealed to me, because it was like, well, I'm not doing 100-foot jumps on skateboards, but I can at least use this information to help me get more out of myself and perform at my peak, so others get the best out of me as well. Which I thought was so cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the reason that there's so much research in the death-defying fields like, motorcyclists and high ski jumps is because risk is a very high flow trigger. Actually being in risk and that sense of having that sense of risk, that adrenaline that kicks in, actually puts us into this flow state. So that's very interesting to know. Yeah.
So we come back to the flow and lead a bit into our limiting sort of beliefs around ourselves and those that are placed on us by others, and just your experience with your self-expression and holding things that have held you back from really opening up and expressing yourself. Because I know a lot of the people that I've spoken to in my network, a lot of the market research I've done, the one of, if not the biggest thing that comes up for people is they hold themselves back because they're being feared of judgment. They're being, they've got high expectations from parents or people around them that they don't want to let down, and they hold themselves back. So can you sort of, I know that you've had a bit of experience and you've gone through this yourself, so can you share a bit about your story in that sense, and then where we sort of go from there? We'll start with your story.
Well, I essentially always felt like I wasn't being myself growing up, because I did grow up in a world of acting, and just being on stage, you have to embody someone completely different to you. And so for me, that felt very nice. That felt natural because I could be whoever I wanted to be. And after some time, I started to notice that, wait, maybe there is something there in this authenticity thing. Maybe there is a nugget of wisdom that I need to pull from what is my true self speaking, and how can I be myself fully. And really, that's just been a journey that I've been unfolding and uncovering. And so far, I've tried to address where is it that it comes from, this sense of wanting to be somebody that you're not. And really, that feeling is almost like a feeling of emptiness. Like you want to fill a void, but you know consciously that there is no void to fill. And so it's like that sense of self-judgment that you mentioned, I think that's really prevalent. I think that's very crucial because we see all these role models, we see all these celebrities around us that we want to emulate, that we almost don't recognize that they have their own judgments too. They have their own pains, they have their own sorrows, they have this whole spotlight on them too. And I always thought of it almost like a shiny object syndrome. Like, oh, I look at all these amazing people and they had fascinating lives full of, you know, adversity. And I always love to attach myself to that archetype of this struggling person in the movies or something, underdog. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The underdog. And so I think I still have that sometimes, that sense of that fear of judgment. And I do hold myself back. But then I remind myself, like, hey, you know, a flower blooms just like that. It doesn't look at the flowers next to it and compares itself like, oh, there's a rose. How come I'm not a rose? It's just they bloom in their own time when it's their time, you know? And that's just like that reminder for me is so powerful, as well as the judgment that we fear from other people around us. It's oftentimes how we judge ourselves. So
well, isn't that it? Like where everything is just a representation of what's going on inside of us. But can I ask, where do you feel the greatest judgment comes from in your life, other than yourself? Where do you feel that pressure most?
I would say a lot of it comes from society and cultural conditioning. Like I'm of an Indian ethnicity, and a lot of what media portrays Indian people as is like they're really nerdy. They're either in IT or something. They're the quickie mark, thank you, come again, like that kind of, you know, that persona is so inbuilt, and it's so in our culture that for me watching that, I wouldn't be able to relate to any characters or role models that I watch in Hollywood, maybe in Bollywood, but I didn't even watch that stuff growing up, only later on. But just like that image thing that was there, and also the high expectations of my parents, like they're both doctors, they're both very well skilled and professional and in their fields. And, you know, I respect them very wholeheartedly, but also at times I would feel that maybe me being a coach would maybe upset them, or maybe not let them really fully embrace this side of what I'm doing. Maybe it's not professional enough. So that fear of that judgment too, as well as just, you know, judgment from like friends that I've noticed growing up who are maybe seeing myself going down this path and not really understanding what entrepreneurship is about, or doing this academy thing. They're like, oh, what is this academy you're doing? You know? So that sense of judgment that I feel is there is from all these three angles. But you know what? It comes down to the self-judgment. Like, how am I talking to myself? Because I notice that a lot of it is the critical voice that's inside my head. Exactly what stops people from flow, by the way, the prefrontal cortex, the monkey mind chatter. And, you know, just, it's almost like mental illness has become like a calling card of this new generation. And I think that's because it's almost like we aren't being kind to ourselves. So how can we expect to be kind to other people when we're not even shining that light inwards and having that love and kindness for ourselves, you know? And just being kind to myself has been one of the biggest keys in terms of shifting everything around.
Yeah, 100%. I think for one of the things that really helped me deal with the judgment of others, and I definitely relate to the judgment from my parents, judgment from my family, judgment from my peers, and even not even my friends, but the people that I grew up with who really don't have anything to do with my life. I just see them in the background lurking around, right?
Yeah.
And then just societal sort of programming as well was that I recognize that everyone deep down is coming from a positive intent, and they actually want the best for those around them. And if anyone is triggered or doesn't like what I'm doing, usually that's because it's bringing up something within them that they're scared of or haven't owned yet. And people like my
Yeah.
parents who might judge or judge me harshly or want something different for me, it's actually because they've just done something different that has worked for them, and that's what they know, and they see me going down an untrodden path and it scares the piss out of them, and they're actually wanting the best for me. So that judgment is actually coming from a positive space. It's just that when I perceive it in those ways that I used to, it was negative, like why can't you just accept me, why don't you just love me for who I am, all these things come up. But now that I recognize it, hang on, it is actually their way of showing me love. If someone cares enough to judge me, to look at me, pay me the time, give me their effort and energy to judge me, it's actually their way of loving me right now. And that's how I just sort of need to embrace that, open up to their perspective and go, you know, thank you for that. And I'm gonna be the example for you to show you that being yourself completely is actually an amazing gift to give the world, despite it scaring the piss out of you right now as well. So that was a penny drop moment for me. That was only really the last maybe 6 months that I really was able to embody that. Yeah. And now I embrace it. I love the fucking haters. I love the judgment. I'm like, oh, because I just now, when I feel that coming towards me, I know someone's in pain. I know someone doesn't love themselves in a certain point. I know I'm triggering them. And I know that if they come close enough to me, they're going to start loving themselves a whole lot more as well. Which is really fucking cool.
Absolutely, man. I think that rings very true to me. Yeah, in my experience too. Just why would they be spending the time to judge you if they don't have that sense of maybe this is something that reflects internally about myself? You see, it's like,
sense of
why
admiration.
would you even give the time to someone who's like calling someone a nobody? Like that makes them a somebody. You know what I'm saying? So if you're like, hey, this person is a nobody, well, then why are you talking to a nobody?
That's it. Yeah. And what are you doing spending your time in that space? Yeah. That nobody is a somebody to you. Yeah. So
exactly. Yeah.
Talk to me about different strategies of getting into flow states, things that people can just take away, implement today moving forwards, and specifically for those that are maybe holding themselves back from expressing themselves openly, holding themselves back from, you know, following a path that they might be shit scared of following because logically it makes no sense, but something in their heart's just pulling them in that direction. Like, what's some stuff people can use today to help them just start opening up?
I found that this is something that I learned from Elliot Hulse when he was on my podcast, but he mentioned gibbering, just saying whatever comes out of your mouth. It doesn't really have to make sense, but you are just shutting off that egoic mind, that chatter. And so it's not going to make sense, but what it will do is it'll put you completely into the moment, and it'll get you to express whatever little clunks of, you know, unprocessed data that is there. So you just go, and you just keep doing this. It doesn't have to make any sense, but just the fact that you're putting yourself out there, you're putting your voice out there, is just untrapping any type of expression that you have that's pent up, that's held back and trapped in your body.
Yes. That's awesome.
Yes.
All right, fantastic. Yes. That's actually on that with the gibberish. I did acting for a little while as well, and we used to do this exercise sitting across from one another, speaking gibberish in conversation, and then discussing afterwards what was you were sort of thinking about while you were talking in gibberish. So often it was actually the same conversation you were having, and so I think there's something in that. Like doing that it releases some stuff that's going on. So that's really cool. Yeah, cool. What else?
Definitely, yeah. So that's something that I've found, and then in terms of flow, I've noticed that creativity is so key in terms of tuning into that flow state. And a lot of times when we have things that we're not really passionate about, say that we're in a day job that we don't really like, it cuts off that sense of creativity and it cuts off that sense of passion. And so what I've been reminding myself is when I am doing something that I don't really want to do, where is it in that thing that I can tap into flow? What is it about that thing that I can use to get me into flow? What am I learning in that process? So
Can you give me an
that's
example?
something like, for instance, say that you are in a state where, let's take the example of apathy. Like you're feeling a sense of apathy and you're not really feeling like doing anything, and you're just in this state of indifference, like I don't care, man. This is a lot of men that I've come across in terms of coaching as well. They're just like, man, I don't care. But they've created a heart wall for themselves. They actually do feel, but they're just cutting off that circulation. They're cutting off that vulnerability. And so one thing that I've found is the apathy in terms of the flow state has been measured as low challenge versus low skills. So you're not having a sense of any challenge and you're not having any sense of skill, high skill associated with it. And so raising a little bit of a challenge of the task that you're doing can break you out of the apathy.
Yeah.
Gaining some more skills can also get you out of there. And there's this whole diagram in terms of the flow channel that you can look at, that Csikszentmihalyi. I always pronounce his name in a weird way, but and my girlfriend is Hungarian too, and she keeps correcting me. But anyway, Csikszentmihalyi has this flow model where the challenge of a task matches the skill of the performer.
Okay.
And if you find the perfect balance, the peak balance between those two, then that will put you into that flow channel.
Yeah.
And so one good way to do that is low challenge and high skill, which is a state of relaxation. If a lot of people find themselves just to be able to relax, that can do wonders for their flow state. Because if you're starting from boredom, which is low challenge and mediocre skill, you're just bored. You're like, I don't want to do this. This is not challenging enough for me.
Yeah.
But if you're coming from that sense of low challenge but high skill, so that relaxation, you're zenned out, you're completely focused in, and you're coming from a positive reference, a positive emotion like relaxation, and not a negative one like boredom or apathy, what you're doing is you're actually creating that powerful flow channel for yourself, for flow to flow in.
I can imagine I can imagine a lot of trades, trade services industry, and people in those types of industries would experience that, like mechanics working on a car that they've worked on a lot before, or builders that are building a house that they've done plenty of times, that just going through the motions. They've got that skill that's been ingrained in them for so long, and just they're able to just really relax and just get into that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Using whatever it is that you're highly skilled at to help you relax.
And the other side of it, I guess, one thing that's coming to me is, I remember when I was like 15 years old working at McDonald's in the drive-through, and I used to have to fold all the cup trays from flat boxes into cup trays. Whew, I'm glad I'm not there anymore. But like I do like 150 of these cup trays right in one sitting, and so obviously the most boring thing in the world, no skill whatsoever. But what I used to do is I used to challenge myself to do it so perfectly, like my arms were like this machine, and just and just make some fun out of it and try and have a game with it and make something of it, because oh my god, it was painfully boring until I actually found a way to make it somewhat enjoyable and challenging.
Exactly. Yeah, and you made it into a game. Like that gamification can be applied to so many different aspects of life as well. If you make anything into a game, that's why a lot of video gamers, they are very, very addicted to video games, because they are in a state of high challenge and they're in a state of high skill. If they've been playing the game for a long time, they're stuck in the flow state. So sometimes there's a dark side of flow too, whereas you can actually cut off the circulation with the outer world and create a bubble around you almost.
Yeah. That makes sense. Okay. Interesting, brother. All right. So can you share with people what's on the go for you at the moment? What are you up to? What are you doing? Where can they find you? How can they work with you? What can you help them with?
Absolutely. Sure thing. So you can contact me on coachingwithsume.com or flowzoneacademy.com. That's FLOZONE. And also you can check me out on Instagram, that Splash Life altogether. Also, I have one for Flowzone Academy too. And yeah, if you just want to hit me up on Facebook, it's Sumedh Chatterjee. I'm tagged in on this video. So if you want to work with me that way too, just shoot me a message. And yeah, let's get talking about the flow. May the flow be with you.
Absolutely, brother. Awesome, man. Thanks again for jumping on. It's been awesome. And yeah, I love just the thought of tapping into this, learning all these little new life hacks and flow hacks to just like increase your flow and your peak performance. It's fucking epic. And it really does exponentially increase your output, your peace of mind throughout the day, your sense of clarity. It really does have a massive effect when you really start diving into this. So guys, check out Sumedh, jump on, connect with him. He's fucking awesome. Absorb his content as well. And brother, we'll chat soon, no doubt as well.
Thank you,
Thank
man.
you, dude. Speak to you soon.